are in my fine cabin on a grand soft day, post Halloween. It's raining out there. Probably can't tell. Hey, Curtis. Howdy from Washington, Texas. So, welcome everyone. Life's good out here on the wild side. Just things are well. I was gonna do a video from my camp. I think I showed you all last week that I set up my camp and my historical camp so I could practice. And I was gonna camp in it yesterday, and that didn't happen because I had a guy out to work on my truck. My truck's been broke down, and ended up taking us longer than we expected, and then we ran into a problem. But anyway, so that cut into camping time. So then I thought, hey, no big deal. I'll do my live video from the camp with a campfire and get things going. But it's raining too much, and even though these phones are waterproof, I didn't want to put it to the test. Besides that, once the water gets on the screen, then it's really hard to use them. So anyway, here we are in the cabin. But this is a good place to be also. And as we do on this channel, like these guys are doing, if you want to, say hi and state you're from, or the city that you're near, or the country that you're in. And that's one of our things that we do. Otherwise, if you don't say hi, I don't know you're there. So if you want to stay anonymous, you are anonymous unless you comment. So I always like to let people know that because you feel bad about needing to leave and do something else. So yeah, all right. Hey dog, what up? And broad skilling. Hey, that's cool. Thank you for joining from Illinois. That's awesome. I love it. I love hearing folks that are around from different places. That's just how I am. I'm gonna make some coffee. I was gonna make cowboy coffee again. Oh yeah, I don't have to yell. I got the mic right here. But because I was facing away, I had to yell. I was gonna make cowboy coffee again, but lo and behold, the time flew, and it was time to get this started. So I'm just gonna make my normal coffee. And looks like my creamer's outside. Man, this cabin. Oh, just heard a rifle shot. Somebody might have shot a. I don't know what they just shot. Shooting a horse. Uh, most likely a coyote. Anyway, I still haven't built the roof. I'm hoping to do that soon. Kind of waiting for a gap in the rain. We're having a really wet fall. We don't normally have a wet fall like this. But anyway, I'd like a few days because I'm not sure how fast I'm going to go. Never built a roof, angled framing. I've never done that. So that's kind of putting it off just for that. Oh yeah. I also remembered yesterday talking to the mechanic guy. The way I move this thing is I strap it down over the top. But if I've got that roof built, I can't strap it down. So I forgot about that. So I'll probably move this week out to my other property. Yay! Can't wait to get out there. And then I'll build the roof. And when I do, I'm going to have at least a foot of insulation. In some spots, I'll even have 2 feet. So with the floor having about 7 or 8 inches of insulation, the walls 2x6 insulation, so like 5 inch, whatever that is, and then the roof. This bad boy is going to be so easy to heat because already it's pretty easy to heat. I was hot last night and kept the fire going. So. Oh shoot. Is the mic not working? Let me try something. I forgot to ask. I just. assumed it's working. Okay. Is this any better? Can you hear me? Anyone? Let's try this microphone. Can you hear me? Do I sound close? Doggone it. There's gotta be technical problems.
Oh, shoot.
All right. Well, let's
No, it's not headphones. It just asked me if I was attaching headphones.
Well, how's this? Is that better? Maybe I gotta go back to the old way. Anyone? Craig said no trick-or-treaters out there. No. If they came by, I was asleep and didn't know it. It was a dark night. I was in bed by 8. Well, thank you, Jennifer. I'm glad you spoke up. Let me, oh, eventually I'm going to figure out how to use my camera like I tried a couple weeks ago and failed. Then it'll be all better. I won't have to use a stupid iPhone.
Volume's not right. Gosh darn it. How is this? Is this any better? I just connected a microphone. Anyone? Oh, for goodness sake. Still sounds far away. Is this any better? I connected a microphone. Much better. Okay. All right. Takes so long, now I'm wondering about the internet connection. Freaking iPhone. The whole problem is the iPhone. I've got expensive microphones. Like, these aren't cheap. I went with the nice ones. And yet, can't get it to work. And it's because of the iPhone. Because Apple insists on making crappy connectors. Anyway, I feel like it's important now to rant about iPhones because Apple is just so freaking annoying. It's like they hate their customers. Like, how can we annoy them next? They just did an update that just screwed it up. It's like the only thing that I liked about an iPhone, and they just took it away from us. So, I don't know. Maybe the problem is they still got the best cameras. I mean, Samsung has some great cameras, but iPhone still has the best in most regards. I don't know. All right. Where were we? Better. Thank you. All right. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. Whoever did. Those who left, you remained anonymous. All right. I got to make some coffee. So, maybe I'll remember what I was talking about. Roof, insulation, moving it. I don't know. So I got this thing for light. And experimented with it. And it puts off a nice light, you know. Puts off a good mood light instead of these bright modern lights. But the problem is, it puts off a strong smell of kerosene, which I like the smell of kerosene. Reminds me of my childhood in a good way. And but it's not exactly the best thing to be breathing. So I haven't been using it, but it sucks because it adds so much character. Hanging out here by the wood stove, reading a book by oil light, and yeah. Anyway, that's the kind of struggles I deal with out here on the wild side. Guys, life is so good and easy. I tell you what. I mean, all you got to do is build this up like a foot or two bigger, and like 8 foot. This is 7 foot. 8 foot by 14, and you'll have so much space. You'll be so much more comfortable in life. Like somebody, I posted about it again. I always post about it. And some gal, she said, I used to like living that way, but now I'm older and I like my comforts. I like my electricity, hot showers, something like that. Staying warm. Staying warm was the main thing. And I just can't emphasize enough, guys. I stay warm all the time. Way more than I did when I lived in a modern home. And yet, no matter, I even posted, because I posted about that, I said, guys, no matter how much I tell this, people don't believe me that I'm comfortable. I posted it on Facebook. And that's where she said, well, that's where I like staying warm. I just can't emphasize enough that I am way more warm now than I ever was living in a modern home. And granted, I didn't live in a modern home. I lived in old 1920s, 1910s homes because I love that era. So they're drafty, and they're not exactly designed well for what do you call it? Forced air heat, with a furnace. But come on, still, even if I did have a new home that is designed well, I don't know that they are. A lot of the time they have vaulted ceilings, and people complain about them being hard to heat. But even if I was in one without vaulted ceilings and 8-foot walls rather than 10 foot, so it was actually pretty easy to heat. You're gonna be spending what, $200 a month for electricity or gas, natural gas, whichever one you're heating with. And now, as soon as you got to spend money, now you're enslaved to making that money to pay for it. And then you don't have a choice to hang out. Yep. Anyway, I'll always be talking about that.
Coffee pod.
I didn't want to know that you're using a coffee pod. Come on. I don't know. I guess they make good coffee, but my goodness, what a waste. All the plastic it takes to make those and the cost. I went to Starbucks for my birthday. I Googled it first because it wasn't my birthday. And so I Googled it to make sure, or to find out if you can still do coffee that isn't on your birthday. I don't really go to Starbucks much anymore, but I thought I'd get a free drink because I was in town. Well, Google said, yeah, you can go from the day of your birthday for 30 days, and they'll give you your birthday drink. So I went in. I also Googled a flat white. I thought I'll find out what a flat white is. So I Googled what that was. I went up to the cashier. And the guy was really cool. Actually friendly. A lot of the times they're not friendly around here. He was. Maybe because they're shutting down so many stores and they want to keep theirs, they've decided, oh, maybe we should start doing customer service. So anyway, he told me, oh no, we only do it day of, but don't worry about it. I'll give it to you anyway. So that was really nice of him. And I was going to order a flat white. And I asked, are all flat whites, they're all the same size, aren't they? Because he was asking me, do you want a tall cup, grande cup, blah, blah, blah. I said, I thought they were all in just a small cup. He said, no, you could do a cortado. So that's kind of disappointing. Anyway, disappointing that I thought a flat white was a drink that I can respect. Anyway, so then I ordered a cortado. That's 2 ristretto shots with steamed milk. Guys, I don't know how any of you can drink coffee with milk. If you're gonna use creamer, at least go half and half. Even half and half is too thin for me. But I went with half and half instead of heavy whipping cream because I wanted to see what's Starbucks pushing on people. So I had it. I went with the normal espresso shots. They sell their cortado with blonde. Anyway, long story short, it sucked. It wasn't good. I'm sitting here right now making a coffee. That's fantastic. I even gave it to the guy who was out here working on my truck. Asked him. I gave it to him the last time he was here and asked him if he liked it. And he definitely liked it. So it's not just me. It's a dang good coffee drink. And it's cheaper than Starbucks. And it's better than Starbucks. So yeah. Anyway, that was my adventure into civilization, which is starting to become a normal feature on this on my live videos, is my experience in civilization. So that was it. It was a waste. I actually had a bad taste in my mouth for a long time. I don't know why it was so bad, but anyway, this coffee is fantastic. And basically, like I always say, I make the coffee extra strong. Like I wouldn't drink it this way when it's black, when I'm drinking black, so that I can add heavy whipping cream, because that is the trick. Good chocolate notes. I like chocolate notes. The trend is all that fruity crap, fruity, tangy. All tastes acidic and tangy to me. I don't get why it's so popular, except that people like to be different. I just want chocolate notes. I don't add chocolate, just chocolate note tasting coffee, heavy whipping cream. This is like a dessert. Anyway, long and the short of it is, my coffee is way better than Starbucks. So happy birthday to me. I can have it on my birthday or any other day. Oh, good. We got some good comments here from Odin33356. Are there that many Odin screen names? 33,355 of them. And all right, let's see here. Craig and his coffee pod. Whoops, Doug got it. All right. Broad Skilling says it's about freedom. Heck, my property tax is $10,000 for a house I finally paid off. Dang. Yeah, that's bad. I mean, you must have a nice house, but my property taxes here are, I've said it before, it's over $2,000, but that's because like I got to pay $1,000 every year for just my water. So my property tax is like $1,200. The water is about $1,000 or so, or $1,200. I lose track of what it's at. But that's why I want to. If I sell this property, my property taxes are going to drop, and that's my biggest annual expense is my property taxes. So I'll be able to live out there where it's peaceful and save money. Civilization is broken. Yes, it is. And I love studying civilization, primarily like Sumer, the Akkadian Empire, the early Babylonian Empire, the early empires and civilizations in the Mediterranean. And what is fascinating is to find the early problems that they dealt with then, and that they're fairly common problems now. The big one that I always bring up is food production. The people who produce the food have always been a threat to the people who lead civilization, because if they cut off the they cut off the supply, all of a sudden the whole civilization is at the knees and mercy of the farmers, essentially, the food producers. And so they've always been a threat to the rulers. And that's why you see all these attacks on rural people. It's fine. Generalizations are hated by most until a certain group gets to generalize about rural people, basically city people, generalizing about rural to attack and defame. So that they can continue to push down the rural people and promote the city people because they're easier to brainwash and easier to control. That's also why right-wingers always think it's so patriotic to support farmers. Small-time farmers, yeah, we got small-time farmers around here. They're great people. I mean, I don't really hang out with them. I'm too weird for normal rural people, but I support their life and what they're doing. It's the big-time farmers that are selling everything to China and enabling our government to have control by like these folks that have the huge farms. And it's not like they're friendly to the common people. They don't let anybody on their property. Anyway, everything's man-made, therefore nobody holds. Everything's man-made, nobody holds any responsibility. Good wineries play music to the grapes so they grow optimally. Unfortunately, modern music will, yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Good point. Broad skewing. Broad skewing brought up civilization would imply we are civil to each other, more alike, human than different. Yeah, people always bring that up when I use the term civilization, and there's a reason I use the term civilization, because the popular trend these days is to not use it. The word first started with civilization, and then what happened was civil, you're part of the civil community, became a term to be condescending and look down on the barbarians, or whatever term you use. And then nowadays they want to say, like, especially like the popular trend in colleges, universities, is to not use civilization. But here's the thing: throughout history, civilization, like way back to Sumer, the very first civilization that we have in history, they were arrogant and they looked out at outsiders as less than them. And so the thing that is important to know is that the civilized world is arrogant and thinks they're better than rural people. And now those civilized, they want to say, oh, we got to quit doing that because it's racist. Well, instead of not using the word, how about you not use the attitude? Because like I said, we still see it today. People getting attacked for being rural. Like if you get on a cougar on Facebook, if you get on a cougar sightings group, all the city people, they laugh, they make fun of people who lose their pets because, oh, well, you moved out into their land, into the cougar's land. And as if they didn't. As if Seattle is not cougar territory. You guys live in such a dense metropolis that cougars can't even get in. I don't know how many coyotes there are in Seattle, and there are raccoons, but that's about it. All the rest of the wildlife has this huge area that they can't go to because all the city people pushed them out. And then they tell us rural people, oh, you shouldn't be shooting cougars because you're in their habitat. Well, so are you freaking city people. But you're in such a dense one that you can't even allow wildlife through. So anyway, just by saying they're not civilized doesn't mean that the attitude has gone away. It's still alive and well, that arrogant attitude. That's why I use the word civilization. And I need to come up with a way to explain it better. I know that was choppy, but you get the idea. Like, it's like they want to distance themselves. That's not their excuse for doing it, but that's what they're really doing. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Like, no, as long as you're going to live in civilization, you're going to get the term civilized because you're still behaving in the same way. If you drop the attitude, the mentality, but you can't, because that's what civilization thrives on. It thrives on them having a superior way of life. And I get into this. I get in discussions with people, and I'm not. And I even had the attitude, not overtly, but that's why it kept me for decades, kept me from living this way, even though I wanted to, because I enjoyed the civilization too much, and didn't realize until I finally did this that it's so much better. I mean, I always wanted to, but there's certain, I guess, I don't know, fear jumping into the unknown. I wish I would have, obviously. I say that all the time. Anyway, broad skilling. Civilization would imply we're civil, yeah. We bitch about kink and water hoses instead of being thankful for running water. Ain't that the truth? Or, as I pointed out from my hotel experience, a lot of the time the stuff barely even works. However, I did have a hot shower this last week. I went and helped somebody trim their horse feet, their horses' hooves for them. They needed help with that, and I told the gal that I needed a shower for some reason. So she said, "Well, when you come over, you can have a hot shower." So I took a hot shower. I spent the first 5 minutes trying to figure out how to adjust it, because I turned it on and everything was fine. I thought I was going to adjust it, but either way that I turned everything, it kept it steaming hot, where I was scalding my skin. So once I finally got the temperature adjusted, it was really nice, and there was good pressure. Way out in the country, way better shower than at a hotel. So, like, my point about that was, here we have the civilized development, and yet most of the time it doesn't even work. So we're not even good at what we're doing. What about the word tribalism? Yeah, well, I mean, to me, it's really important to maintain that civilization term as long as there are people exhibiting it. In my mind, I have a dream of just doing away with our modern way. I believe America was designed to be something new, but Western civilization was so strong and dominant in the culture that it just flooded the United States. So we won the war against Britain, but then the wealthy in Europe and the UK, they started investing, and so they still, in a sense, in many ways, they still won the war by dominating our culture. And I believe that America, like I say, was supposed to be a place where the common man thrives. Instead, the wealthy just dominated. And that's why I want to make this Western series in New Mexico, because it would be a chance to exemplify a lot of that. Because, like, as you learn about the Old West, a lot of us get our interest in the Old West from, it was a place where a normal person, a normal family, poor people could go out, have opportunity, and thrive. But what you find out is, yeah, that happened sometimes, but for the most part, the deck was stacked against them, and the deck was stacked in favor of big corporations. Like, who really won? The train companies, the guys who owned the train companies, they profited huge off of the West. And then and big companies that could buy up homesteads that failed, or homesteads of people who barely proved up on them, and then sold out because it was a losing proposition. I've seen ads, the government would advertise how easy it was to farm out west. Like, you don't even have to add water, just let the rain grow your food and all that, which was somewhat true. But then, like, you read the Laura Ingalls series, and she describes a lot of how it went for her dad and then for when she got married, and that, which I think was a little bit of a political agenda in her books, from what I've heard, but I haven't found out a lot about that. But I did get this book written by her daughter called Freeland, where I believe she talks about how the Homestead Act was stacked against Americans. And so, in other words, like she describes in her story, not this one, Laura Ingalls, while their family was working hard, suffering and struggling through the winters in De Smet, I always forget, South Dakota or North Dakota, but it was De Smet, I know the town name. While they were struggling, these corporations were paying guys to have a shack and just sit there. So the corporation would pay these employees to sit in the cabin for 5 years and do the bare minimum so that they'd prove up on it, and then they'd sell off the homestead to the corporation for $1. And that was the true settling of the West. So you find out that this belief that we have of the West being an opportunity for the common man kind of was, but it was actually just a trap for them to go out and struggle and suffer and, like I say, fail, so that then the big money could buy up on it. There's so much about how it was money that drove the settling of the West. Besides that, it was women that drove the settling of the West, and weak men. So, because Easterners would travel out west and they wanted all that lifestyle that they had back east. The men loved it, tend to. You read these stories, they loved how it was. But then you get these families coming out. The farmers pushed aside the cowboys and the open range cowboys, to where it then became illegal to run the way that they were running it, so that they could have all their nice cities, fine rules, and all their pompous civilization that wasn't so civilized. But anyway, I'm not explaining all of this really great. Hopefully I'm putting in some good ideas, putting across the ideas. So anyway, tribalism, that's what I would like to go to. I have this vision of all the buildings and all the houses where the doors would be removed, all the windows would be removed, and I can picture plants and trees growing out of all these houses, growing through the floor, through the roofs, with deer and raccoons running around them. And while we all go out and set up these actual living areas in tribes, there's a lot of evidence that the perfect amount of people to live together is like 90 to 120, something like that. Like, that's where it's big enough that you're not bumping into each other all the time, but it's also small enough that you can live together with common rules, common ideologies and stuff. So in my mind, like, I'm not against stacked housing. I like minimal housing, and then you go out and do stuff outside, and it doesn't take room. I got plenty of room in here to study, use my computer, watch TV, whatever. It doesn't take that much space. Like, there's no reason that I need 15 feet to walk to my kitchen. Like, why can't I just turn around from my desk, sit at my desk, turn around here to my, what I call my kitchen? You don't need 15 feet of walking space. Anyway, so you have these consolidated living areas with gardens and pasture, and where everybody can be more self-sufficient. But the problem is everybody thinks that that's suffering. So So yeah, tribalism would be not back to where, see, I also believe in a national government, because if I don't believe in like anarchy, and I might upset some people here, but like I have a desire toward, a proclivity toward anarchism, but the problem is there's places we've seen that happen, and it just turns into warlords, or it turns into tribal fights all the time. And like, there's a lot that I love about what I've learned about Indian tribes before Americans got here. Well, actually, after Europeans, because of the horse era was the best. But they were violent. Well, if they weren't a brave warrior tribe, they were a tribe that was getting attacked regularly. And there's a lot of fighting. That's where our national government comes in, so that we have peace, that we can't have warlords coming up. The problem is the national government has a proclivity to go toward acting like a king, which we're living in now, because that's why the Federalist Papers were written, to bring in the communities, that the states that were apprehensive toward a strong federal government. They believed in stronger states' rights. And there's the anti-Federalist Papers that describe this stuff, because they knew, that's why a lot of the Constitution was amended to assure these people that, look, no, the federal government won't get out of hand like you're concerned about. But it did. Just like that. It didn't take long at all. The Civil War was kind of the end of it, where after that there was no question who was winning. It was the federal government. So sure, we got rid of slavery. That was going to go away anyway. But the Civil War was primarily about federal dominance, and that's why we get taxed like crazy, and why they have trillions of dollars in debt. That's our money. Anyway, I didn't mean to talk about all this today. Sort of like identity groups. I agree with your point about arrogance within groups. Yeah, if there was tribes, like their rules are important. Community is important, in spite of the fact that I live alone. I mean, you got to have rules so that everybody gets along, and there's some beauty in that. People not being selfish, so that you have a smooth community where everybody gets to live their lives. I try not to annoy any of my neighbors, and that's always been my way. Is that neighbors shouldn't have any irritation. But the point is that when it's a group of 100, that it's small enough that, well, if you don't like the way that this tribe is living and thinks, the values that they hold or the way that they get along, well, then you go find another tribe or start your own tribe. And so it allows for differences of views, but also I don't know, I lost my train of thought there. So anyway, tribalism. I'm an idealist, so I dream up ideas that'll never be. I'm also melancholy. Let's talk history. Oh, my history friends aren't on here. Oh well. So I mentioned that civilization pushed aside the cowboy. There's multiple cowboys that write about the old guard of cowboys, which was the 70s. The 70s was the end of the early cowboys. Trying to think of what movies. They don't really depict it because they don't really know. But Lonesome Dove Lonesome Dove depicted it, I think, because they were living that wild life where it was really common to just go out and they were stealing from Mexico. So it was like Texas did get more civilized earlier, and that's why they moved up north where they could go and free range again and pick out a huge plot of land where they could free range and be wild again. And so it kind of depicted it. And then it wasn't long after that where the cowboys, these ranchers, moved up north. They moved into Indian territory in western Nebraska, Wyoming. I don't know if Wyoming was Indian territory or if it was formally opened. And then eventually they moved into the Dakotas, around Deadwood, which is sad. It took a lot of this land that had been given to the Indians, but they pushed into these areas where farmers were scared to go because there was still a lot of angry Indians because of it. Like I think Nebraska was technically opened. The government opened it to settling, but people were scared to go there. But the cowboys, they were a different breed. They had fought Indians a lot, so they went ahead and pushed in and settled the area, made it safe, and then the government made rules against open range, and they made laws then that was conducive to farming. And then, so they pushed, that's why I say it became basically illegal to be a cowboy as they knew it. And and so that old guard of cowboy, which is funny to me because, daggone it, the wind's coming up, closing the door. Because to me, even the 1880s and 90s cowboys were still way more free and wild than we are today. But that old guard of cowboy, they didn't like fences. They had their ways, and they liked their freedom. And they're actually described as being wild. Like they were closer to the Indians. They were more like a tribe of warrior than they were civilized. And so it's a fascinating thing to study. It's hard to find real info on it. That's why I'm pretty excited about this book that I just got. My brother gave it to me for my birthday. Because to learn about the 70s cowboys, and a lot of them, they were so disgusted. Some of them kept up cattle work. Some of them just drifted off. I don't know, lived in cabins. Some of them went into civilization, bought saloons, whatever. Kind of it was very similar to the fur trade era. The trappers, the fur trappers, they went out and fought Indians and discovered and explored a lot. And then again, based on money, the fur trappers weren't out there for adventure. They were out there. It was money that drove them. But a lot of them, I think, ended up being out there because of the way of life. They became wild, and but it was money that drove it. And so when the beaver industry tanked, the money was gone, and suddenly the trapper was gone, followed by then the gold rush. So then it was gold that pushed the people into the far reaches of the West. And then because there was a lot of gold, following them were the saloon keepers, of course, gamblers, and the cowboys, because you could make a ton of money. These miners who were too busy to hunt, and they'd buy up beef, so it created a beef industry. And so it was always money that was driving the settling of the frontier, until finally the trappers, the miners, the cattlemen tamed the West enough that then the farmers could come out and push out all wild men that went before them and build their communities and their civilization and have civilized ways. Because all of the preceding ones, they weren't conducive to family life. And now I'm very pro family, but I'm not pro civilization. Let's see, we got a comment here, Lee. Your perspective is neat, and I agree with it. Not sure if you've read Vardis Fisher's Mountain Man, but in that book, a character talks of the dangers of the civilization brought by Oregon Trail. Oh, cool. No, I've not heard that one. I'm on my phone, so I keep all my notes on my phone. I have an old-fashioned pen right here. Let's see. I usually keep 3x5 cards blank, but Vardis Fisher. Vardis. Yeah, I'll look that up. Yeah, it's interesting how many people wrote about the problems of civilization. So it'd be interesting to hear their perspective at the time. Thanks, Stanley. I'm going to keep trying. This is the kind of stuff that I want to talk about on my over on the Creekside channel. I want to do videos really getting into this, but it's such a huge. Well, I'll make an excuse, you know. I need to focus on it more, and come up with some really good examples and stuff. Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Lee. I appreciate that. I don't like the lighting with the door closed. I'm going to go prop it open. So speaking of civilization, I feel like I'm in civilization here because I got neighbors around and a road nearby where I can hear cars. So as soon as my truck gets fixed, that's what I'm waiting on. And I can get moved out to my other place where I'm far away from civilization. However, I have a view of the city, and that was intentional originally, but now I don't care so much for it. Actually, when I was in South Africa, I was exploring the idea of building a orphanage out in this village that I got to go and visit. And so I talked with the chief and his council, and they all said, yeah, whatever you need from us, we're glad you're here to help, because they have a major problem at the time. Particularly, people were dying from AIDS a lot, and that left children vulnerable, and they don't have as much stigma as we have on taking advantage of the vulnerable. And so these kids, they'd be vulnerable to preying men who preyed upon vulnerability, we'll just say. And so I actually there was these women, I forget what they were like elders, and the women elders, you know, because it's a patriarchal people group. And so I met with them and asked them, go out and find all the orphans that you can in your village area. These villages were huge because they're rural, you know, a lot of farming. And so they did. They found, like, over there in South Africa, they consider an orphan somebody with a single parent, like a mom, like just a mom. And they told me, okay, we've got like 20, 30 we located. I was like, okay, but they've got a parent. Okay, I mean, go out and find like the very vulnerable, like the ones that have no parents. So, oh, okay. They were all such neat people. I loved the Zulu people. I loved it there. And so they came back with a list. I think it was like 7 or 8. They found like 7 or 8 kids that had no parents, like they were just living alone, couldn't fend for themselves, couldn't, and so I was like, great, okay, we've targeted them. Now we need a building that we can use, and we need people to care for them. So that was my first step. I was going to move on to the second step, but the Americans at the other village, they didn't like me doing this. All these good Christian people, we were there to help the orphan problem in South Africa. They got upset that I was doing this, and they intervened and got me to stop. And so those kids were never helped. Like, that's good old civilized mentality right there. You're not following our orders or our rules. We don't like that you're going out here doing things on your own. And that was just bizarre. And I forgot why I brought it up. I got kind of off on this tangent. Oh, yeah. Anyway, South Africa, where I was, it was incredibly beautiful, like breathtakingly beautiful. And there was this valley where the river went through. And they're not like us Americans. They don't build houses down in the river valleys because it floods. I'm in a river valley right now, well, a creek. And so what they did was they had their farms down there. So a person could go to the king. They called him king because, you know, they were ruled by the Brits. So they have that. They don't have chiefs like we do, but it's essentially a chief. They would go to the chief and his council and say, hey, I'd like to use that piece of land so I can farm for my family. And then the council talks. Is that a good idea? Is that a good use of the land? And then, okay, good. And that's how they organize it. There's a lot of benefits to that. Like, we're so big on land ownership here, but then we get taxed the heck out of it and told how to use it. Whereas in South Africa, they didn't have to buy anything because the king owned it all, but him and his council decided, you know, who got to use it, and they wouldn't. There was no reason to tell people no, you can't use it, because that's what it was there for. So they would build on the hillside, build their homes, and then they would farm down in the valley. So there was this piece of land where I was thinking, man, all right here we can build up an orphanage. So I talked to them and said, hey, can I use that land? They said, yep, anything we got, we're happy to let you use it because you're coming in and helping us. And but that was going to take time. We located these orphans, and so then I was going to use this building that was just sitting vacant. So there was a building to use, but like I say, then the Americans stepped in and said, oh no, we can't have you doing this. We can't have you helping kids. That's for us to do. And then they never did, as far as I know. I don't think they ever did anything. So anyway, that's my rant. Oh yeah, but anyway, that's where it put in my mind. I just thought about how wonderful that piece of land was and the incredible view. And then when I came home, I came back home from South Africa in 2006, and then I don't know, 5 or 6 years later, I owned my own piece of land that was pretty similar to the setting there, but not as beautiful. So anyway, for whatever that's worth, it was interesting getting to see how other people groups live and operate. And although I don't know, land ownership, sure, I'm against kings, obviously, because they in the past they have a history of ruling for their own good. So it was interesting to see how they did. Like the kings there, they weren't like it wasn't like the European kings where they use the peasants to make themselves rich. You didn't see a lot of that. Although, don't get me wrong, there was a ton of corruption. That's why I don't donate charities and all that crap. Tom's Shoes. Remember Tom's Shoes? All that stuff's a joke. That money goes, they send all that charity money goes to the government over there, and they just pocket it. Government rulers over there, they're very corrupt. It's just part of their culture that might makes right. That's one aspect of civilization that is supposed to be appealing, because that's one of the downsides of tribalism, because it is might makes right. Whoever is the strongest and gets away with, and it's just the normal way of thinking. Like they don't. It's just how you think. It's just the mentality that, well, they're stronger, so I'm subject to them. And I mean, it's a civilized mentality too. America came in. We were managed to whoop the Brits. The British said, we're stronger than you. You got to do what we say. We said, well, we think we can whoop you. We got the help of France and Spain and managed to whoop them. And then we became the dominant force and said, well, we're stronger than you, so you guys got to do what we say, and took over the land. And so it's the same thing. It's just jumping through a lot of hoops to convince ourselves that we're, like people say, that we're more civilized. When it comes down to it, we're not. But we're hypocritical about it. All right. Anyway. My breakfast is ready. I'm put honey and creamer on it, and it tastes really good. I'm also planning to start making biscuits. I got this 10 box from my historical camp, which has a pretty good fitting lid, but I'll still have to use a string to tie it. And that's so I can carry butter with me. I'm working on a camp where I'll carry a little bit more weight on my pack horse. I don't know. We'll see what even happens. But anyway, I'm trying to render some fat so I can start making biscuits. And that's what I was going to also do for the live video today, but it's raining. But anyway, outside I'm rendering fat because I got these cast iron pots and they got feet on the legs, which makes it hard to bring them to a boil on top of the wood stove because there's an air gap. So really what I need to do is I use one pot. I've got one Dutch oven that sits flat, but I use it for dog food. So I need to trade. So anyway, that's why rendering the fat outside on the propane burner. But anyway, once I've rendered it, it's the I think it's the leaf lard from pork, which makes really good biscuits, pie crusts, that kind of thing. So when I render it, I'm going to start making biscuits again. So maybe next week I'll be able to do that outside over the fire. Just started raining again. Well, it's been an hour. Don't forget to like these videos. One person's dead so far. Sometimes people remember to like them. It's been an hour. If nobody has any questions or comments, I hope I've given you a lot to think about. Appreciate the positive feedback. It's good to hear how that goes over. That's why I'm studying things like the wealth of nations. Capitalism is another subject that goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about. I'm not a communist, not into socialism whatsoever. I always have to give that disclaimer whenever I bring up communism because, you know, here in the civilized world, we believe in dichotomies, that if you don't believe that, then you must believe that. We don't like free thinkers. but I'm a free thinker. I got my own perspective on it, and hopefully I don't get killed for it, because civilization hates people that think on their own. Yeah, thanks, Broad Skilling. I appreciate that. Like I said, appreciate the feedback. So it's been an hour. I guess I'll cut this off. Everybody, thanks for hanging in there. Glad you came along, and hope you get out and enjoy nature. Go out and look at where the moon and the stars are, even if that's all you do. Find a dark spot, stand in the same spot every night at the same time, and watch where the moon is or where it isn't, and get you more in sync with nature and what the universe is doing, because that's what civilization is against. It's all stacked against you being connected with nature, and that's a whole nother story. All right, thanks, folks. Thanks for the likes. Have a great week. Remember, life's a lot more fun over on the wild side.